Shalawam. I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory unto YAHAWAH BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Double honors unto our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. SHALAWAAM, SHAMAIWAN, Barakyam. Peace, mercy, and blessings unto all of you fellow yoke laborers out there, unto the fellow believers, unto the Akim that are pushing the truth and sincerity, to the Barakyam, the BAYATH, DAWADA. The true name of the Heavenly Father is Yahawah, which means He exists, that He's to be. The true name of the Son is YAHAWASHI, which means He delivers. We are the Hebrew Israelites. Today we're being called by bywords and proverbs, which is part of a curse, to cut us off from our heritage. We've been called African American, Africans, Black, Negroes, Colored, Mexicans, Cubans, Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Indians, Native Americans, Seminole Indians, okay? But that is not who we are. We actually make up the lost 12 tribes of Israel, and we have biblical tribal names from Judah to Issachar. The so-called white men, they're not white, they're red. They are the Idumeans. According to the Holy Bible, they are the end of the world. And Jacob, which Jacob's name was turned into Israel, okay? In the Hebrew, you would say Yasharallah, which means he is the prince of the power, okay? So Idumea is the end of the world, but then you have Israel, the beginning of it, that followed. Okay, so this is pretty much, I'm going to go into some history. I pray that this be very edifying and very informative. Okay, so what I'm going to go into is pretty much how the Vikings were so-called black, okay, of the Middle Ages. In fact, the people that were ruling Northumbria, London, Wessex, Mercia, different parts of Europe, Denmark, Sweden, Scandinavia, okay, the people that were inhabiting and ruling those different lands were so-called black people, man. But we're not black, it's just an indicator of us being the real Jews, okay, the true people of the Holy Bible. Okay, so I just want to bring this out. We'll get some scriptures, and I pray that this is edifying. Okay, now this is actually a book. Okay, it says an interesting side to Black history, the Black Vikings by Demetrius Dillard. Okay, and this is from NORTHAgents.com. Okay, February 21st, 2017. Now, this is a book by Nasheed Al-Amin, which I do not have. With Lord willing, I do intend on purchasing it. It says, Black history is entirely too immense to relegate to 28 days of the year. The immensity of Black history far exceeds the time period of the transatlantic slave trade to present day, which the transatlantic slave trade is biblical. Okay, Deuteronomy 28, verse 60, I will send you into Egypt again with ships. Okay, what is Egypt? Bondage, slavery, all right, rigorous work, oppression. Okay, so the triangular slave trade or the transatlantic slave trade was the curse that was going to befall the children of Israel for idolatry and for killing the prophets and for being disobedient. Okay, and extends far beyond the United States. Black history is, in essence, is universal and timeless. Okay, so actually, when you go back to Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, okay, and actually when you go back to Adam and the Adamites, when you go back to Cain and Abel, they were all so-called dark-skinned people. They were all swarthy, which swarthy is another way of how to describe black people. Or dusky, okay? You would say that he's swarthy or dusky. Let's just look it up real quick, because I'm sure you're going to see some of these words if you have not seen them already. See, darkest in color, okay? Used in euphemistic or poetic reference to black or other dark-skinned people, a dusky Moorish maiden. You see that? Now, what about swarthy or Switzerland? dark-skinned. All right?
Swarthy.
See? Dark-skinned. All right? Black. Different ways of saying black. More. More is another way of saying black. Okay? Now, let's go back into this. Irrefutably, Salaki, let me finish my point. So when you go back to the Adamites, Cain and Abel, they were also called swarthy. They were dusky. They were dark-skinned people. They had melanin. Okay, they were not white. Now, when Cain killed Abel, what was the Lord's response? Right? Well, the Lord put a mark upon Cain. What did he put on Cain? Leprosy. Him being a perfect leper. Him being turned from a so-called black man to a so-called white man, which is the same thing that the Lord did to Miriam when Aaron and Miriam were talking shit about Moses for marrying an Ethiopian woman. Okay? Irrefutably, white supremacist and Eurocentric ideologies have prevailed in the U.S. as the educational norm, the intellectual norm, and the societal norm, right? Because you have to understand that the white man is the devil, which means the deceiver, Diablo, the liar. Okay? And he was loosed, right? Because he calls himself Caucasian, which means cave dweller, come from the Caucasus Mountains. They were loosed out of that state of them being cave-like beasts to deceive the world, okay? And to ultimately invent weaponry to help them destroy themselves and their own kingdom. But in the process of doing that, they would take down all of our lands. They would enslave our people. They would beat us and brainwash us. They would steal our heritage, our culture. Hell, listen to the fact what they call themselves, the Jews. They're false Jews, okay? The real people of the scriptures are scattered all throughout the world, but they're mainly the ones that are being oppressed over here in America, getting shot down by the cops left and right, okay? For instance, most American children will likely describe, excuse me, Jesus, right? Which we know that's, and that's not the Lord's name, okay? That's Greek, all right, or Jesus, or Earth Pig, okay? But the name of our Lord and Savior is YAHAWASHI, okay? It says, but Jesus as a docile white man with blonde, silky hair and blue eyes, or they may say the smartest man who ever lived was Albert Einstein, just like the typical high school may be inclined to say the most influential man in American history has been Franklin. Despite the accuracy or inaccuracy of the aforesaid examples, there lies a more interesting one. The Vikings. A 4th grade teacher asked her students to sketch a picture of a Viking. That teacher would presumably come away with a stack of drawings of tall, muscular, bearded white men with blonde hair armed with steel plates. This widely recognized image of a Viking, according to a number of black scholars, is an utter misrepresentation of how Vikings truly looked. And this happens a lot. All right? The whitewashing goes way, way, way back. Okay, and actually it started with the Greeks, which we're going to get, but let's get into some more of the history. The study and examination of black Vikings has been the subject of slight scholarly attention over the last several years and has offered yet another interesting aspect of universal black history. Nasheed El-Amin, a shameless black scholar and educator, which he's probably an Israelite, is the author of the true myth, Black Vikings of the Middle Ages, right? He could be an Israelite that's into Islam, okay? So during the Middle Ages, he'll be known as a Moor. Today, they will call him a Muslim, or they may call him a black Muslim, okay? It says, of the Middle Ages, published in 2013, all 22 chapters of this novel offer thought-provoking insight on the significance of black Vikings in the Middle Ages from 800 to 1100 AD, which was a little before that, and the abundant presence and influence of blacks in Europe, which goes unnoticed, unmentioned, and unrecognized, and has been relegated to the periphery, right? which goes with Wisdom of the Solomon, the 5th chapter, how they made no account of our labors. Leave it up to Esau, you would think it was always all dark, muddy, the people were all dirty, stink. Nah, man. All right? There were a lot of great artists, a lot of great musicians, poets, obviously navigators of the sea. Okay? But what happens? It goes unnoticed, and we get mocked. You know what they say about us? We was kings. We was kings and shit. You see? Well, it's really spiritual, because Edom, he always referred to himself as a czar, a Caesar, or duke. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. They did have kings. Okay? Like you have Ptolemy, king over Egypt, or Seleucus, and Antiochus, king over Syria. You know, but they put off the kingship and became Caesars. Okay, so they don't really cleave to being the king. Who cleave to being the king? The Israelites. Okay, because what did the Lord tell Moses? I will make you a nation of kings and priests. Okay. El-Amin opened his book with a bang. Europe, we are told, has always been the domain of white-skinned people, classified variously as Caucasians, which means cave dwellers, whites, Nordics, Aryans, Indo-Europeans, white people, right? Which they were not. They were the Romans, and they were the Romans. They were conquering these different parts of the world as the Romans, which goes to the Bible prophecy about Rome being that powerhouse in the earth. Okay, because of what practically all historians and scholars have impressed upon us for roughly 3 centuries, that the people under discussion were white or Caucasian. The Vikings or Norsemen, okay, which Norse means north, all right, men from the north, and the Viking means a sea pirate, all right, which you can look all this up for yourselves. But now let's get into some imagery. Okay, let's get into some imagery. Now, if you look at this, turn it around so you can see it. This is where the Vikings came from. All right, you see right there in the Viking homelands, the color for it, and you see the red Viking settlements, and you see the blue is how they traveled to get to these settlements. Okay, so you have Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Norsemen. The Norsemen came, all right, from these lands. These were sea pirates, so-called black sea pirates, navigators of the sea, and they came into England. What did they find? People already settled here, kingdoms. Okay, there's a show on Netflix you can watch. It's about King Alfred and his son Edward and his daughter Ethelfled and Uhtred, and they were running with the Vikings, because what they were doing when they got to England, they were raping, pillaging, robbing, going into churches, taking all the gold, the holy vessels, all of the silver and the gold, and a lot of them took it back to Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. And it got to the point where they were doing so much killing that they established settlements. Okay, see this right here in the red, that would be called Danelaw. Okay, which is the part of of Europe that they took over. So it says, where did the Vikings come from? The Vikings came from Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, which are north of England, which is why they're called Norsemen, men from the north. Their land was not fertile, it was rocky. They found it hard to grow crops. They found that England was rich with plentiful lands and treasures, right? The church, right? Mainly the people they were killing were the priests, the monks, if you will, and they were going in the church and they were taking, you know, just like I said, all of the relics, the crosses, you know. when you go into our history, man, we dedicated a lot of gold and silver pretty much to the church or to the house or the temple that we are dedicated to YAHAWAH BAHASHAM YAHWASHI. So during this time, there were different churches, monasteries. Okay, so these and they were farmers, all right, but they were also fierce warriors. And what they would do, pretty much, they would go hit licks on England and go back, you know. the climate was much warmer. You see that? But when you watch the TV shows, it's all fucking dark, cloudy. It's all muddy. Everybody looks stink. That's right. Our culture is a people of royalty, man. Okay. The climate was even amongst the Vikings. They had kings. They called them earls. All right. Which an earl is nothing more but a king. All right. The climate was much warmer than where they came from. They perverted and wanted to settle there, right? Because it was very cold up there. Okay. And we watched that show, Last Kingdom. They went up to Northumbria and to Peppenburg. And what did they do? They slaughtered Uhtred's family. You know, where they killed his dad in battle, and they took him as their son. All right, which they later moved to Wessex. All right, which Wessex became the last kingdom standing, because you see right here, East Anglia was a kingdom. There was a king ruling there. You had Mercia, the kingdom. Okay, and right here, it doesn't say it. Which this darker green one, I'm zooming in. This right here, Salakia. That's Wales. Okay. If you watch that show Vikings on Amazon Prime, you can understand why the Lord allowed this to happen, because the Lord directed the steps, right? Because they were all divided. You know, they were all proud. They were different kingdoms. They weren't getting along with each other, even though they had the same God. Okay. And what happened? Just like the scripture says, a house divided shall not stand. You know. So that's just some imagery real quick, so you can understand geographically, you know, how all of this played out. Okay. Let's see. The Vikings or Norsemen are one such group of people, and perhaps 98% of books written about them make the claim that they were white, blonde, blue-haired Nordics, often without offering a shred of proof. We all people assume this must be true, right? Because this man is in power. He has the power to make the shows. You know, he has access to all the histories and the relics and everything. So when you could watch a show like that, you may not even get into it, because they're all Idumeans. Come to find out, when you go into history, how much this man's been whitewashed and stealing our history and claiming it as his own. Those are Israelites. Okay, those are nothing but heathen Israelites that did not identify as being so-called Christians. All right, or accept the Lord as their Savior, so to speak. Okay, so it's 98% of books written about them make the claim that they were white, blonde, blue-eyed Nordics, often without offering a shred of proof. We all people assume this must be true. Eurocentric scholars, those who extol ingenuity, civilization, uniqueness, and purity of all things European over all other races, have repeatedly asserted this. He outlined the purpose of his novel. Writing this book will demonstrate to the reader that the Vikings, Norsemen, or Scandinavians, particularly those of the so-called Viking Age, right, which is when they were invading England, okay, were a predominantly black and dark-skinned, non-Caucasian people, which lines up with the scripture, because according to the Holy Bible, this man will be he'll be bound 1,000 years. Okay, so actually let's open with that scripture. This is Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. Okay, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Now we need to know who this angel is. This is Revelation chapter 1 and verse 18. I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Amen. And have the keys of hell and of death. So that angel is talking about YAHAWASHI, man. YAHAWASHI has the keys of hell and of death, and hell represents a period of suffering, slavery. Okay. So going back to Revelation 20, you see right there, Satan bound. Now Satan means adversary, devil meaning deceiver. The old serpent in the garden, the snake, which proves it wasn't an actual serpent, it was a man. The dragon, the Holy Roman Empire, right? And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. Okay? 1,000 years this man was bound. Now let's look at the Holy Roman Empire. I believe it's from 300. Salaki, give me 1 second. Okay, Salaki, I just had to look some things up. So if you look into Constantine the Great, he pretty much ruled over the Holy Roman Empire, which they changed the capital from Rome, all right, to Constantinople, which is over there in Turkey, all right, or Asia Minor. Actually, let's go into it. Because the capital got changed from it got changed from Italy to let's see. Salaki, let me see if I can find them. Okay, Salaki, so it got changed from over here in Italy, all right, Roman Italy, to Constantinople. Okay, and you can see Thessalonica, all right, which you have the book of Thessalonians. Over here in Asia Minor, 7 churches of Asia Minor, you had a lot of Israelites living over here. Okay, so this became known as Nova Roma, which means New Rome, or the Holy Roman Empire. All right, and the Jakes that were ruling, they became known or looked at as the Romans. Okay, but what Constantine did, he said he has a dream where the Lord pretty much told him to put the Holy Cross on his shields, you know, his clothing, and when he went to war, he won the war. So what he did was he pretty much stopped all the persecution of the Christians, you know, because back then they would throw the Christians into what they would call games, and they would have them eaten by tigers, lions, and bears in front the crowds of the Romans. Okay, so it stopped the persecution of the Christians, and you can see when he got into power, all right, it's about 306 AD, 330 AD, all right, 1453, when Constantine fell to Sultan Mahmud II, who was a Turk, which he could have been an Edomite or Ishmaelite, which I believe he was an Edomite, and fell to Mahmud II, and he called it Istanbul. Okay. Let's see how Constantinople became Istanbul. Yep, see, Istanbul is Constantinople, but he got conquered. How did Constantinople become Istanbul? When the Roman Emperor Constantine left Rome in the 4th century, he deemed Istanbul as a new capital. It was then that Constantinople became Istanbul, the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Well, they wrote it backwards. Okay. Rome. So Rome was up there in Italy, right? So Constantine changed the capital of Rome. Okay, he changed it from Rome to Constantinople. Constantinople got conquered by Mahmud II, and he called it Istanbul, which goes back to those Ottoman Turks, which goes back to Psalms 83, Edom, and Ishmael, man. Okay. Says Constantinople was founded by the Roman Emperor Constantine, 272 AD to 337 AD, and 324 on the site of an already existing city, Byzantium, which was settled in early days of Greek colonial expansion in around 657 BC by colonists of the city-state of Megara. Actually, you can watch this show on Netflix as well. Salakia. Let me go into this. Okay, so the guy's name is Mehmed II. I looked up what are Mehmed II's achievements. Mehmed the Conqueror expanded the Ottoman Empire, leading the siege of Constantinople in 1453. Okay, and then we know not too long after that, 1492, Cristobal Colon sailed the Ocean Blue. So around this time, we were coming out of power. So that 1,000 years from 300 AD up until 1453. Now, YAHAWAH BAHASHAM doesn't deal with exact numbers, all right, because it goes way back. It goes back to about 111 AD, all right, going back to Septimius Severus, all right, and all those different Israelite generals, okay. But you can say it pretty much started when Constantine sat on the throne, and it pretty much went down when Constantinople got sacked by Mahmud, and he changed it into Istanbul. All right, Mehmed the Conqueror expanded the Ottoman Empire, leading the siege of Constantinople in 1453, and extended the empire's reach into the Balkans. This westward expansion across the heart of the former Eastern Roman Empire led him to declare himself Caesar I Rome, Roman Caesar. Okay. So just some history on that 1,000 years. All right. Now, Revelation 20:2, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So for that 1,000 years, he was bound, man. Okay. And cast him into the bottomless pit and shut him up and set a seal upon him. Okay. Okay, as you can see right here. All right. It's pretty much a map between the Black Sea and the Caspian. Okay, because you had Jake's ruling down there in Turkey, you know, Asia Minor. All right. As you can see right here, Caucasus. Okay, so this whole mountain, this is where they got shut up. This is where they got that seal put upon them. This is where they got put into it, a beast-like state. All right, so it's Caucasus mountain range between the Black and Caspian Seas, separating Europe and the Middle East. From Latin Caucus, from Greek Caucus, said by Pliny, Natural History, Book 6, to be a Scythian word similar to Caucasus, literally the mountain, ice shining white with snow. Okay, I read somewhere else, which I can't find it right now, Salakia, how Caucasian means cave dweller. Okay, the mountains, the caves, the clefts of the rocks. Okay, now we know from Bible prophecy that that's his nature, man. All right, how the first caves he dwelt in, it wasn't up there in Russia. He took it from the Horites. Okay, this is Revelation 20:3, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, which that bottomless pit in Europe, and we see where he was shut up. He was shut up in the Caucasus mountain, and set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more, right? Till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. Okay, so that for the whole 1,000 years, his ass was shut up in the Caucasus, man. All right.
Strong's G 4105 Planao.
Word there for deceive. To cause to stray, to lead astray, to go astray, to wander, to lead away from the truth, to lead into error, all right, to sever or to fall away from the truth, of heretics, to be led away into error and sin. All right, now what is this man doing? All right, of him, while the earth has been given to the hand of the wicked, he's leading the people away into error and into sin. All right, that's what he's doing in a nutshell. And the sins of Babylon have reached unto heaven. So for this whole 1,000 years, he was shut up. Okay, so when you go into Bible prophecy, it doesn't make sense that he was the Vikings during this time frame, because he was shut up during this time frame, that he should not deceive people, that he should not lead people into the way of sin, which is exactly what he was doing as the Romans, worshiping Jupiter and all those false gods, heavy into homosexuality, men cutting off their rods, men worshiping women wanting to be men. Okay, him going around oppressing, rape, robbing, pillaging, and murdering everyone. Excuse me. This man is a goddamn Decepticon. He's a deceiver. All right. Now let's go back into this history. A lot of this information is becoming harder and harder to find. You know, so Baba Shah, you know, Salakia, if I seem kind of sloppy with it, you know, trying my best to bring this out and to make it, you know, link it up with prophecy and make it edifying and informative and make it make sense. You know, it says, he outlined the purpose of his novel writing. This book will demonstrate to the reader that Vikings, Norsemen, or Scandinavians, particularly those of the so-called Viking Age, which you can watch that show on Amazon Prime. You can watch Last Kingdom on Netflix. Okay, from 800 to 11 AD. So for that 1,000 years, which you go back to Constantine, started in like 300 AD, they were already shut up, man. They were shut up in the Caucasus Mountains. Okay, actually, let's go to what happened to them. All right, because this was payback for what he did to this was payback for 70 AD. All right, and you know what else happened during 70 AD? He killed a lot of Israelites, but he took a lot of them back to Rome as slaves. Okay, on ships. All right, this is Job 30:1. But now they that are younger than I have meat and division. That's talking about those Idumeans, man. All right, they're like little badass kids, man. All right, and also written in Isaiah that children are their oppressors. All right, whose fathers I would have disdained. Disdain means to not disapprove or not to allow something, to have set with the dogs of my flock. Now why? Because he would have sex with them. They're heavy into bestiality. Okay, all right. And when you it makes sense, because when you go into the story of Cain, Abel sacrificed the first, you know, born lamb, male lamb without blemish. What the fuck did Cain bring? Produce, lettuce, watermelons. He always making watermelons jokes about Jake. His ass probably offered watermelons. Okay, yeah. Whether two might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perish. All right. For want and famine, they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and waste. This is what they were doing, man, during the so-called Dark Ages. They had a seal set upon them. Okay? YAHAWAH BAHASHAM put them in the caves in the beast state, man. to where they would wear their clothes until they fall off. They would eat lice and different bugs off each other. They would eat uh, mallows and juniper roots for their meat. All right. They were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief. So they got chased out all the cities, man. All right. To dwell in the cliffs of the valleys and the caves of the earth and in the rocks. Okay. They lost their language. They became cavemen. That's why you have a saying so easy a caveman could do it. Among the bushes they brayed, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools, yet children of base men. They were viler than the earth. Right? Yeah, that's them. That's this man. And this is where his ass was at. All right? Khazar. Khazars, man. All right? Let's close out these tabs. It says, particularly those of the so-called Viking age from 800 to 1100 AD were predominantly black and dark-skinned non-Caucasian people, and that blacks were of African or Asian descent were not strangers to any part of Europe in ancient or historical times, right? Because we got scattered. We got scattered many times throughout history through the Babylonian captivity. We got scattered, and of course we went back, right? And then you had the Greek captivity. We got scattered, right? The Medo-Persian captivity, the Roman captivity. All right, and what happened in Rome? A lot of our people fled into different parts of Africa, mainly the west part of Africa. Okay, although the word race has been fairly debunked over the last 2 decades or more, the world has endured 3 or 4 centuries of racial conditioning, the effects of which still remain embedded in our psyches and still affect the quality of life for millions of people around the earth. Says, furthermore, Al-Amin identified his hard 300-page book as a historical work that is fully documented and offers a more realistic picture of European history that has ever been told. He went on to say in a Facebook post that this book is a must-read for readers seeing a true history of Europe and the Vikings. All right, which Viking just means sea pirate or sea traveler. The former, which they discovered so-called America first, which is Ozrid before Cristobal Colon. All right, the former adjunct professor at Essex County College in Newark, New Jersey, began his first chapter by nullifying the myth of the historical accepted Vikings. He wrote, "When we hear the term Viking, the image that comes to mind most readily is that of a tall, blond, broad-shouldered, bearded white man dressed in animal skins, wearing a rounded helmet with horns protruding from either side of it. Many books written by Western scholars present illustrations of Norsemen thusly attired, and the few Viking films that have been made reinforce this image, although Vikings rarely, if ever, wore such helmets or never actually wore them, right? And when you watch that show, they don't wear no shit like that, all right? Even when you watch these shows, the Vikings and Last Kingdom, they don't wear that. Okay, like you have the NFL team, the Vikings with the helmet, and they look just like they describe them as being a white, tall, big beard, blonde-haired demon. All right. Al-Amin repeatedly challenges widely accepted scholarly work by Eurocentric historians, scientists, and academics who we stated are guilty of presenting an untruthful rendering of history and attempting to establish an overwhelming white presence in prehistoric Europe. Interestingly, Al-Amin noted the significant role the Moors played in the development of the European continent, and the Moor just means black. Okay, the media may recall that the Moors were predominantly African. They weren't African; they were Israelites that got scattered. Okay, but including numbers of Arabs, Israelites got scattered over there as well, and Sephardic Jews, Israelites. Okay, were singularly responsible for the civilizing of Spain and by extension Europe and elevating it to the preeminence on the continent. Okay, Al-Amin isn't anti-white, nor is he a black supremacist, as some scholars have supposed him to be based off his scholarly work. He does, however, unshamedly enlighten his readers on how racism, the white superiority, dark skin inferiority complex, and unrestrained Eurocentric arrogance and ignorance have critically poisoned the world. Okay? I'm going to jump down a little. The author, in addition, took a few chapters to list and describe a number of influential figures, all of whom had Negroid, African, or Afro-typic Asiatic features, which they were all Israelites, comprised of Norsemen, the Kings, all right, Vikings, which we know William the Conqueror, Alfred, Edward, Ethelred, okay, warriors, settlers, poets, landowners, and likewise who contributed to the development and civilization of various European regions. Okay, this, as aforementioned, was meant to invalidate any credence of white men being totally responsible for the advancement and preeminence of Europe. According to Al-Amin, a wide range of black groups, such as the Celtic peoples, the Danes, the Celts, and the Skodungs, inhabited and ruled much of northern and western Europe and built megalithic structures which are reportedly still standing more than 1,000 years later. Al-Amin highlighted that these above-mentioned groups were well respected and had lasting prominence in ancient Europe. Okay. Now you really got to get the book, to get all the meat out of it, but this pretty much gives us like a synopsis of the book, if you will. So if it's on your spirit and you could cop it, hey, cop it. Lord will, I'm gonna get it, and I may do a part 2. But now, let's go into another book that I had got. Well, actually, the brother, put me onto this through the spirit and inspired me to do this lesson. Because the main book is the Holy Bible. Of course, the Apocrypha is part of the Bible, but you have other books to back up what we are saying. Because you might have heard, I didn't hear brothers say, well, the Vikings were black, but then the spirit hop on you to look it up for yourself. Okay, so this is the book. Who is the Esau Edom? Salaki, I forget the guy's name, but you can just Google who is Esau Edom. Okay, and now this is a page in the book, right? I believe it's page. Actually, let me just go get it real quick. Okay, now this is a book by Charles A. Wiseman that is titled "Who is Esau Edom?" All right, on page 89 of this book, it pretty much gives you the legacy of Israel and Edom. And Shalaki, this picture doesn't do, much justice, but you see the point that I'm focused on in the bottom right of the screen. Okay, it says the let me see if I can zoom out just a little. Okay, better. It says the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, then you got Judah, right? It says royal title Zerah, ancestor of the Trojans. You see that? Ancestor of Trojans, Brutus, and early British royal lines. Judah. Okay. I know who else came from Judah. Came Phares, which came what? David, Solomon. All right. Which Joseph. All right. And then came who? YAHAWASHI HaMashiach, the anointed. All right. And from Mary, and from Nathan. Nathan begot Mary. Okay. And from Joseph and Mary, okay, came YAHAWASHI HaMashiach. All right. Now it says, now right here, okay, this is dealing with Idumea. Okay, all the way from Abraham. All right, from Abraham, Abraham had other children with Keturah. I believe he had 6 sons. They didn't have the birthright. They were without birthright, right? But he did have Ishmael, and he wanted it to go to Ishmael, but the Lord said it ain't going to go to Ishmael. It's going to go to Isaac. All right? Because Abraham Sarah had Isaac. Abraham had Ishmael with Hagar. Okay? Now from Isaac came Jacob, whose name was turned into Israel, 12 tribes of Israel. And also, who else came from Isaac? Esau. All right? And from Esau, you got the Idumeans, Genesis 36. Okay? Now later on in history, all right, they moved to South Judea, Idumea. All right? They mixed with Judites during the Herodian dynasty and during the Hasmonean dynasty during the time of the Maccabees. Antiochus, okay, when they were invading Jerusalem and the Lord rose up the Maccabees, thus came up the Hasmonean dynasty, okay, and through John Hyrcanus, he pretty much went through and slew, I believe he slew about, I could be wrong, actually in another book right here, so let me just get it. Now, this is another book, that the brother gave me. All right, it's called The Roman Empire of the Edomites by William Beeston. Now, in this book, it tells you how John Hyrcanus, all right, which is the nephew of Simon, right, which you had the Maccabees, Matthias and his 5 sons. Now, this is The Roman Empire of the Edomites by William Beeston, page 23. Okay, it says, let's see. Judas Maccabeus attacked. I want to make sure the audio is good. It's going? Okay. It says Judas Maccabeus attacked and defeated them, referring to Idumea, several times, killing on one occasion no fewer than 20,000, and more than 20,000 on another. He took their city Hebron, all right, which was the city of David, and the towns thereof, and pulled down the fortress of it, and burned the towers thereof round about. At last, his nephew, all right, Hyrcanus, the son of Simon, took others of their cities, and reduced them to the necessity of embracing the religion of the Jews, or of leaving the country, okay, and seeking new habitation elsewhere, which is where they went to Rome, right? Or they got assimilated into the Greek culture, right? It says, and seeking new habitations elsewhere, whereupon they submitted to be circumcised, became proselytes to their Israelite creed, and were incorporated with the church and the nation of Jews. Okay? So when you go right here and it says, the Edomites moved to South Judea, Idumea, and mixed with Judites, producing Herod, the one who the Lord called the fox. He came from the Herodian dynasty. He was an Edomite. He was an Idumean, all right, producing Herod and some of the Jews. Okay. Now you see right here, it says, return from Judites from Babylonian captivity. Right, they were in Babylon. Actually, that's after the Assyrians took down the northern kingdom. The Lord sent the Babylonians to take down Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the southern kingdom. The Judean Israelites, right, migrated to Europe as Celts, Goths, Saxons, Irish, Scots, Danes, okay, etc. The 12 tribes of Israel under the new covenant, okay, which we know the new covenant is when we get the new bodies, so they weren't under the new covenant. We're not under the new covenant yet, right? But the point is that the Israelites migrated to different parts of Europe, man. Okay, so that's the point I wanted to get from this book. We were scattered. Okay, the Lord allowed our land to get ransacked by the Edomites. Actually, I may have it up in here. Let me see if I have it. Salakia, what am I doing? Yep, there we go. This is the Roman Empire of the Edomite by William Beeston, which is what I just read, you know. It says, Judas Maccabeus attacked and defeated him several times, killing on one occasion no fewer than 20,000 and more than 20,000 on another. He took their chief city, Hebron, and the towns thereof, and pulled down the fortress of it, and burned the towers thereof round about. At last his nephew, Hyrcanus, which John Hyrcanus, right, who was pretty much the king at that time, son of Simon, took others of their cities, and reduced them to the necessity of embracing the religion of the Jews, or of leaving the country, and seeking new habitations elsewhere, whereupon they submitted to be circumcised, became proselytes to the Israelite creed, and were incorporated with the church and the nation of the Jews. They were swallowed up in laws, partly among the Naphtalian Arabs, and partly among the Jews. Okay? So yeah, man, you know, the people who inhabited these lands, actually, let's go back to the other picture, you know, that proves they were Israelites. All right, and you should know by now that the Israelites were a dark-skinned people. Okay, and this is where the Saxons were living. Okay, Israelites, man. These are all Israelites. So what was happening back then? So-called black-on-black crime, if you will. Israelites fighting other Israelites, man. You know, the heathens, they were heathens because they were worshiping the gods of those Vikings, man. All right. This is from a teacher's guide to the Holocaust. All right. It says summary of geographical movement of European Jews in the past 2,000 years. All right. During the past 2,000 years, European Jews have migrated extensively, right, from Portugal to Turkey. Jews have been attacked, banished, and forced to choose between death and converting to the prevailing religion. And that's how a lot of our people became Muslims or got into Islam. It was about a sword. Okay. Hell, that's how we became Gentiles in the first place, man. When you go back to the Maccabees, that's how our people became Greeks in the first place, man. They had to choose between death or converting to the so-called prevailing religion. All right, during Antiochus' time, it was being a Greek, you know, eating pork, working out naked, being uncircumcised, worshiping Zeus and those different gods. Okay, so this happened all throughout history, man. Homes and the buildings of worship have been destroyed. All right, I'm not going to say that word. I'm going to say Israelite people have moved away from the hostile situations, sometimes voluntarily, but often by force, in search of more tolerant communities. The theme of this section is Israelite heritage and the displacement that has characterized the relation between Jews and their sense of home. The Israelite homeland originally was the land of Israel. Eventually, Israelite people were scattered across thousands of miles. This is known as the diaspora, a word with Greek roots mean to scatter about. All right? Actually, let's get that, man. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 64. And the Lord, YAHAWAH BAHASHAM, shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And today that's pretty much Christianity, right? Today that's Christianity and Islam. A lot of our people believe in Allah, or they believe in white Jesus. Back then, our people were so-called. They were also into Islam back then. They would call themselves Moors, but then a lot of them began to acknowledge that they were Jews, and they became Christians. They came into the faith. And you had other our people. They were into all different religions, man. All right, the Vikings, they pretty much worship Odin, which is where you get the word Wednesday from, Woden's Day, or Friday from Freya. Thor, which is nothing more than Osiris, Horus, and Semiramis, man, which is nothing but recycled Egyptian gods, man, or Babylonian gods. Okay, so that's that wood and that stone. Says Israelite scholars developed recommendations and customs during the 2nd century in response to this widely geographically scattered population. The Israelite diaspora was critical to the survival of Judaism. All right, Roman Empire from 70 A.D. The diaspora grows. In 70 A.D., the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem, which the Lord prophesied that in Matthew 24. Okay, which the Lord YAHAWASHI prophesied that in Matthew 24 to his disciples. He told them that there should not be one stone left here standing upon another that shall not be thrown down. All right. And he also told them, when you see Jerusalem compassed about with armies, all right, get out, pretty much get out, because just know the desolation thereof is nigh. Okay. In 70 A.D., the Romans destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem. A large part of the Israelite population was either massacred or exiled. All right, exiled where? Into different parts of Africa, man. All right. And in Judea, the area near present-day Israel, 25% of the Israelite population was exterminated. 10% enslaved. They got brought back to Rome, or they got sold into other different slave markets. Jews became a minority in their own land. All right. Many Jews fled to Mesopotamia, which is modern Iraq. Okay. We got scattered everywhere, man, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and we began to worship other gods. Okay. And the rest fled to lands around the Mediterranean, presently known as southeastern Spain, southern France, southern Italy, Greece, Cyprus, and Turkey. Later, the Jews began to head north to present-day northern France, Belgium, Holland, Germany, Austria, Bulgaria, Bosnia, and northern Africa, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. Okay, by 300 A.D., which is when pretty much the beginning of the Dark Ages, which is when the Israelites were ruling, right? About 3 million Jews had settled in most parts of the Roman Empire, which is the Holy Roman Empire at that time, except Britain, which Britain is where the Saxons were living and where the Danes or the Vikings were invading. 1 million lived west of Macedonia, Greece, with the majority settling throughout Asia Minor. Remember the 7 churches of Asia Minor, okay? And east to the Caspian Sea and up the Persian Gulf. Jews lived as far north as Cologne, Germany, right? The Dark Ages, chaos and violence for Europe. Constantine gave Christianity status as the official religion of the Roman Empire. During the next 3 centuries, invading Ostrogoths, Visigoths, Vandals, Huns, and Franks, and Burgundians created a violent, unjust, and impoverished Europe. The Jews were treated as poorly as the rest of the population. Discrimination against the Jews was written into laws prohibiting Jews from holding high positions in government and to marrying with Christians, with those Christians were Israelites. And the Jews were pretty much Old Testament Israelites. They didn't believe in the Lord. Okay? So the Jews were Israelites that were pretty much Old Testament Israelites, and the Christians were those Jews that believed in Yahawashi or believed in Jesus, so you can understand. Appearing as witness against Christians and owning slaves, converting to Judaism was also forbidden. All right? Islamic Empire, 700-1200, Golden Age for Jews in Spain. Beginning in the mid-8th century, along the southern and western rim of the Mediterranean Sea and east beyond the Caspian Sea, Jews were widely tolerated and accepted under Islamic rule. The Muslims granted Jews and Christians exemption from military service, the right to their own courts of law, and the guarantee of safety of their property. Islamic territory included present-day Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Western Russia, the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, Northern Africa, and in Europe, Spain, Sicily, and Sardinia. Jews experienced a golden age. Israelite poets, scholars, scientists, statesmen, philosophers flourished within and were an integral part of the Arab civilization, right? Because a lot of those Arabs, they were Israelites, all right? For hundreds of years, Jews and Arabs lived together in peace and with mutual respect. In the middle of the 12th century, this golden age of the Muslim Empire and the Israelite golden age in Spain ended. Okay, so that's all I need to get from this article, just so you can understand about the diaspora and the scattering. And from that book, I showed you our people. They actually fled into Denmark or Daneland. All right, the Danes, the Vikings were Israelites. Okay, now what happened? They began to take over different lands, but a lot of them began to convert. All right. I actually saw the brother actually shared this as well, I believe. Or I may have saw it on a brother shared it on Instagram. This is Olaf II, Harold's son, King of Norway, which I believe that is a so-called or maybe a Norse name. Okay, it says Olaf II, Harold's son, also called Saint Olaf, Norwegian, Helig Olaf. All right, 995, died July 29, 1030. All right, Stickle, Stad, Norway, feast day July 29th. The first effective king of all Norway, and the country's paid a 12-year respite from Danish domination and extensively increased the acceptance of Christianity. Now you have to remember, these were so-called Vikings that took over this part, man. Okay, but a lot of them began to convert. Even when you watch that show, The Vikings, Ragnar, all right, which he pretty much led the whole great heathen invasion and the great heathen army, and also he had his sons. I believe he had about 3 or 4 sons. They began to continue his legacy of raiding and invading England. Okay, so when he raided the monastery or the church, he slayed the monks. He slayed all the monks except one who he took as a slave, all right, which he later freed them, all right, and the monk, you know, the monk and Ragnar pretty much become friends. There's one point in the show where he tells him, "You're the only person that I truly trust." He asks him to teach him how to pray, you know. So it was real heavy, you know. They began to raid, but a lot of them began to convert. Okay, it says the first effective king of all Norway and the country's patron saint, who achieved a 12-year respite from Danish domination and extensively increased the acceptance of Christianity. His religious code of 1024 is considered to represent Norway's first national legislation. Says the son of Lord Harold Grinsky and a descendant of the Norwegian ruler Harold first Fairhair Olaf was reared as a pagan, right? Meaning he was into worship of pagan gods, Odin, Thor, Frigga, all right, and became a Viking warrior in the Baltic region. He fought against the English in 1009 to 11, all right, which was during the time of William the Conqueror, I believe, but assisted the English ruler, no, Slovakia, not William the Conqueror, but assisted the English ruler Ethelred, all right, the second, the Unready, against the Danes in 1013, and this is a son of Alfred the Great. What I believe is like the great grandson of Alfred the Great from that show Last Kingdom, all right? Because his son was Edward, and Edward's son was Ethelred the Unready, or Edward the Elder. Okay, the Unready against the Danes in 1013, when the Danish king Swin the first gained the advantage in England Olaf went to Spain, which is where your other Israelites dwelling, all right, and also to France, where he was baptized at Rowan. So a lot of them began to come into the faith, man. They begin to get baptized, all right, and to believe. Returning to Norway in 1015, Olaf conquered territory that had previously been held by Denmark, Sweden, and a Norwegian earl or king, Hakon of Lade. By 1016, he had consolidated his rule in all of Norway. In succeeding 12 years, he built his base of support, the aristocracy, in the interior, and pressed relentlessly for the acceptance of Christianity using missionaries he brought from England. The Church of Norway may be dated from 1024, when Olaf and his ecclesiastical advisor, Bishop Grimkel, presented a religious code at Moser. Okay. Olaf resolved his conflict with the Swedish king Olaf Skotingnung by 1019 and joined forces with the king's son, Anund Jacob, when Canute, king of England and Denmark, threatened to conquer Norway. Canute's control of the trade routes to the west of Norway and the prospect of his ruling more indirectly than Olaf had done won the support of leading Norwegian chieftains. Canute forced Olaf to flee Russia 1028, where the Norwegian ruler took refuge with his Swedish wife's relatives. Okay. So yeah, man, our history is very vast, it's very deep, and a lot of it has been whitewashed. Okay, but I want to read this again because it goes into the other gods, and I'll get a few more precepts, then I'll close it. This is Deuteronomy 28 and 64. And the Lord, YAHAWAH BAHASHAM, shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even one a stone. Okay, now this last article I got pretty much breaks it down. All right. It says the second Scandinavian trinity consists of Odin, Frigga, and Thor, a group much resembling Osiris, Isis, and Horus, right? Which goes back to what? Egypt, man. So the gods that those Vikings, those so-called black Vikings, who are Israelites that got scattered up there, they were worshiping other gods, just like the prophecy said they would, man. Okay, but when they begin to invade England, which was being held down by those Christian kings who were also so-called black men Israelites, they begin to convert. All right, the former is slain like the Egyptian deity. The second is his wife, our universal goddess again, and Thor is their son, a divine hero who, in fighting with the huge serpent of Midgard, parallels himself with Krishna, Hercules, and Apollo. All right, now I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just at the point. It says Nimrod or Adon or Adonis of Babylon was the great war god. Odin, as is well known, was the same. Nimrod is the character of Bacchus, which the Greeks came with that, and the Israelites began. And actually, if you go to Mardi Gras in New Orleans, there's a fucking Bacchus float. Okay, was regarded as the god of wine. Odin is that represented as taking no food but wine. Okay. The name of one of Odin's sons indicates the meaning of Odin's own name, Balder. All right, which means the seed of Baal. Okay, so they're worshiping doubles, man. That's the whole reason why the Lord, YAHAWAH BAHASHAM, took us down in the first place, because we were sacrificing unto devils and not YAHAWAH BAHASHAM. Okay. This is Job 9 and 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right, to the cave dweller. And what did he do? He covered the faces of the judges thereof, which is a judge, a king, a ruler, a noble, a great warrior. All right? If not, where and who is he? All right? Actually, let's go into the word where it says cover it.
Strong's H 3680. Kasa.
Kasa means to cover, to conceal, to hide, to be covered, man. All right, to spread over. And what did he spread over? He spread over our images with his image, man. This is 1 Maccabees 3 and verse 48. And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen, all right, the wicked, had sought to paint the likeness of their images. So they covered over our images and they put up their images, man. They whitewashed our images, and instead they used their images and they hid our true history from us to cut us off from being a nation, man. All right. So with that, I'm gonna close it. You know, I pray that this has been edifying, which I said, Lord willing, I'm gonna order this, and Lord willing, I'll be doing a part 2. You know, I'm gonna say, call LAWAYA, all praises to YAHAWAH BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, QADASH. Double honors unto our apostles and elders, the great millstone. SHALAWAAM, CHASAADYAM, Barakyam. Peace, mercy, and blessings to the elect.